Are you feeling this longing for something deeper, maybe more meaningful in your life, or just needing an escape to get away from things that are keeping you stuck in your life? Welcome to Solo Travel Adventures. I'm Cheryl Esch, where today we're going to talk about some ways to have purposeful travel that will change you more from the inside out, possibly. But I am personally being called for a deeper experience right now in my travels. And for me, this looks like a several day hike or walk or journey. And I want to share, well, how do you know this is what you're being called to travel to or do in your travels versus just going somewhere to see a site or being a tourist, so to speak? For me, I listen to the longings of my heart, what my body needs physically, mentally, and even spiritually. And when I sit with that and listen to what it is that kind of why am I needing that would be a good question. And then what does that look like? And that's what we're going to address today, because that why question, it does need to be addressed, but that is something you need to sit with yourself and determine and just be quiet for a while and hear really what is your need right now in this season of your life. And so for me, this looks, as I mentioned, probably some sort of walking, hiking journey similar to the Camino. Now, I did do the Camino a year and a half ago. It's been that long since I've done it. And I guess I just really long for something similar, but also different. And I'll tell you why it will be different for sure. So the Camino walk really was a whole body thing. It was very physical, it was spiritual, and it also got me connected mentally. It was good mentally for me, and it was basically a reset, so to speak. And that is really what I'm longing for right now. And so that's why I thought, oh, another type of like pilgrimage. So they consider the Camino a pilgrimage. And it could be anything like that. It could just be a couple day walk or journey or hike, whatever level is suitable for you. And I think it could be possible for everybody, but it may look differently for you. And that really depends on you, where you want to take this extended walk, or if you find another outlet for what is drawing you or calling you for a deeper experience in your travels. And for me, that is a lot of being outside in nature in some way. And so walking and hiking does that. Walking helps me clear my head. I get out of my head actually, or I have time to think. It's both for me. It's weird. It helps me release all those gerbil things going on in my head and that are spinning around like on the wheel. But it also gives me time to reflect. So when I plan a solo travel for myself, I do listen to my inner promptings. And for me, it is often God is leading me in order to reach me. And He's doing that to pull me away from the noise of my daily life. And maybe that's what you're feeling or sensing as well. Just needing to be pulled away from the noise and the distractions of what's happening around you. And so my experience on the Camino, you can listen more specifically about those in episode 107 and how I prepared in episode 104. But I'll share just briefly that my expectations for the Camino were not fulfilled. And yes, you're going to have travel that doesn't meet your expectations. It might be even disappointing in some ways. And that was actually the case for the Camino, but I want to share why that was. First of all, I was trying to make the Camino I was going through a hard time I had a trauma that happened in June of 2023. And so this was fall of 2024. And my hope was that this Camino would signify this new beginning and everything, all my traumas would be released. I would be unburdened by that. And I would just be this new person, right? When I came back from the Camino. And it was not that. It didn't happen, right? And so I held these really high expectations. I put a box around the Camino, And what that did, it really prevented me from seeing in the moment, enjoying in the moment, and letting God lead the journey. And so I was trying to force something, and I probably missed out. I also came back disappointed that this big transformation didn't happen on the Camino, and my life didn't change when I came back. I will tell you that is usually the case, though. So if you have those kind of expectations about a trip, then we need to reevaluate really what the purpose of your trip is. And so as I reflect on what I did wrong and how I would definitely approach it, I'm of course in a much better place a year and a half later and really have healed from some of that. So a lot of what I'm feeling drawn to is I really want God to lead me in this journey. So I am trying to plan for one of these several day hike or walks for myself. And I am thinking about what it is too, that why is God wanting that? I just have to be open to that. And so I want to have my eyes open, my heart open. And it's also not just that, it's also a physical thing. The Camino did have some physical challenges and did show me some things physically. And I know how to be a little more prepared for the next long hike that I do, to be a little more physically prepared, and that it will be difficult when we do things that are outside of our comfort zone, things that push us a little past that. It is going to be challenging, and have changed my mindset and know that's part of the process. And I'm actually welcoming that as part of the process, not going in like I did in the Camino, like I got this, when finding out I don't got this. And I suddenly, a 10-year knee injury comes back, and I had to rethink, really, should I have been carrying almost a 20-pound pack at my age? Lots of questions come up, and we discover things about ourselves during those moments. Definitely, I have a different mindset. I'm more prepared. And so what I am doing differently in just really feeling drawn, I know if I get it in this year, it's going to be challenging because I do have already a lot of travels planned and a lot of weekends for work trips planned as well. So I'm just praying about it right now. I've listed a few places that have intrigued me, and they're not just to go to a place that's popular or that everyone else is doing it, like the Camino, but I've listed places. Some of them are less known and they're quieter, and they're maybe not as physically strenuous, but there's still a physical element to it, right? I got to be moving my body. And so I know that I came back, even though I had some physical challenges on the Camino, I did come back feeling pretty good as far as like my body and my mind felt really good because of the movement I was doing every day, which I have to admit, even though I teach Pilates, that is an element here. I get so wrapped up in work and teaching that I forget how important just moving my body for an extended period of time every day, and even being outside if possible, is really, it's like this magical sweet spot for me. And I know it helps my body, mind, and spirit. So that's the other reason I'm aiming and looking at an extended journey or pilgrimage, if you so to speak. So I've listed a couple places that intrigue me, and I'm going to sit with them in prayer about the choices and continue researching as well to get a better feel as to whether that hike or walk fits with my personality, fits with what my goals and expectations are, and to also to get me a little out of my comfort zone. And so that's sort of, I have a couple in mind. And then thirdly, when I have those in mind, I'm going to ask myself, is it feasible? Meaning, is the timing right? For some of them, they might take 45 days, or for example, the Appalachian Trail takes, if you do it from end to end, could take you 6 months. And that's not feasible, obviously. Could you do sections of the Appalachian Trail? Could you, depending on where I'm going, could you cut that 45-day trip down to maybe just, again, a section? So also looking at the physicality of it. Is it physically possible? One of the trails on my list is Mount Blanc in Switzerland, Italy area. And for me, from a physical standpoint, I personally don't feel that is feasible for me. So that one would be out, although I'm knowing it would be gorgeous. And then how much planning and prep are needed? So that's also key. Like, how much do I have to, quote unquote, train for this walk or hike? Yes, I want to have my body prepared, but I also have to look at the reality of the fact that I am no longer the athlete I used to be in my 20s and 30s, and even in my teens. So I have to consider those factors as well when I look at places. But timing will be a lot of it based on my schedule and really what is calling my heart. So I have a list of several hiking trails / pilgrimages that you could consider as well. Maybe this is something you've been interested in, and maybe this is that little seed that I'm planting to consider it and sit with yourself and see where you are being led and look at the details. So I'm going to list a few, not a few, there's like maybe 15 here or so. But of course, there's the Camino, and there's many different routes of the Camino. The Camino is wonderful because there are a lot of places along the way. You don't have to bring a tent like you would if you walk the Appalachian Trail here in the US. And you can split that up. You can do it in different sections, and there's different routes. And it is popular though. So I will tell you, if you are looking like I am for something a little less crowded, then some of these other ones may actually fit the bill. There's also Machu Picchu, which I've also done. And that one you have to, because when you are going into a site like that, you have to make reservations or get a permit. And so this definitely is better done with a group. And there's many group tours that actually, even some of the places I am listing, they will coordinate this all for you. So if planning is like really overwhelming for you, and I know in certain phases of our life, or just your different personalities, you don't want to deal with that. So sometimes finding a tour group that will go to these places is very possible. There's plenty out there. So I've done those too. Really love them both in different ways as far as how they met me in my life at the time. But some others that have been on the radar for me, or things that I've started to find out about, is, so there's a hike in the Canary Islands. It is called GR 131. It's spanning 7 islands. And so it usually takes about 45 days. Of course, that could be broken up. You don't have to do all the trails on the 7 islands. And so there's a thought, lovely Canary Islands. There's also Nepal offers some multi-day or weeks even treks through Mount Everest Base Camp. There's the Annapurna circuit, which is 10 to 17 days. Now, these are pretty intense. You definitely should consider going with a tour group on that. You're dealing with snow, and so it is breathtaking, but it definitely not I would love to go to Nepal, but I don't think I would do those hikes. They seem a little over the top for me personally, but that's me. There's also Cotswold Way in England. This is 102 miles. You could do the thing in 8, 10, or 12 days. And lovely going along and seeing all these different towns along the way. And it is a little bit quieter, so to speak. There is also a quieter alternative to the Camino, Via Francigena. It's from England to Italy. It ends in Rome. And so it's really rich in some medieval history, and again, a lot of charming villages along the way. In Japan, which is one of the ones that I have really kind of being pulled towards, is the Kumino Kodo, and it's a 4 to 7 day hike. And it is a deeply spiritual forest trails with shrines and hot springs along the way. And it is one of the only, along with the Camino, it's a UNESCO site. It's considered one of those. It's listed along those pilgrim routes. There's also a peaceful Nordic trail in Norway and into Sweden, St. Olaf Way, and it's 400 miles, and there are 7 paths that exist. Now that would be amazing. There's also the Abraham Path in the Middle East. Obviously, right now would not be a good time to go do that, but it is a powerful cultural and historical journey through the communities tied to the Abrahamic traditions. There's also, as I mentioned, the Tour de Mont Blanc, which is from France, Italy, Switzerland, and that's, of course, pretty heavy-duty hiking, I should say, right? There is the Appalachian Trails I mentioned. That's going to be in the U.S. The other ones in the U.S. are the PCT, also called the Pacific Coast Trail. There is the Colorado Trail and the John Muir Trail in California. And that is it's a trail that passes through Yosemite National Park, which we know is gorgeous. Some more less crowded, more nature-focused types of walks there's 2 in Scotland. One's called the West Highland Way, and it goes through the misty lochs and rolling hills, and it's a soulful, introspective feel. I know Scotland's been calling me, and so even more so now. And then there's the Great Glen Way, also in Scotland, and it does include a stop at Loch Ness area, right? And then, believe it or not, there's one in Australia. And this is rather remote, peaceful, and immersed in nature. That one you want to research what kind of resources would you have along the way. And it's called the Biblium Track. And that's in Australia. Oh, there's Dolomites in Italy. And that one is 75 miles of a trek or a hike. And then there is in New Zealand, from the north to the southern end of New Zealand, it's if I said that correctly, and that is 1,864 miles or 3,000 kilometers from pretty much end to end in New Zealand across both islands there. And you got beaches, forests, and mountains in that one. There's also the circuit in Chile, Patagonia area. And then the one that I really had wanted to do when I went to Iceland, but I was not there at the right time, was the Lugavíkur Trail. And it's 34 miles, takes about 3 to 4 days. But it's only really, you got to go in the summertime to do that because there's too much snow actually. And some of the areas are closed off during other times of the year. So these are a few that I've come across. I'm sure there are others. These are some of them. They're popular. They're known hiking trails, right? But they're not as populated as much as, say, the Camino or Machu Picchu. I will say the last one I mentioned, the one in Patagonia, the circuit in Chile, that's also getting to be popular. So that one you can actually do on your own or do with a tour group. So that one it's quite manageable to do on your own, but you do have to pack your food if you're doing that. Now, when I did Machu Picchu, they carried the food and the camping gear for us, and that was part of the tour, and I highly recommend that. So what is calling you right now in your season of your life? Are you also maybe being drawn to getting out in nature, taking, even if it's just a full day or a 2-day hike or pathway in maybe one of these places? Maybe you can't do the full week or the full 10 days or whatever, however long it takes to do some of these hikes. But is there something else, maybe even locally, or something that's doable that is calling you? I have to be honest, these types of walks, even though a lot of them are not classified as pilgrimages or the spiritual, so to speak, there is, because you're in nature and you're connecting your body, mind, and your spirit as one, there is a spiritual or a pilgrimage aspect to it, even though they might not claim it is. And that is how I approach when I go on these long hikes, really opening myself up to what God might be showing me in nature, but also showing me in my situation, showing me in other people, like seeing and meeting other people, and just getting to discover myself a lot more during these times of pulling away from the things of everyday life, pulling away from the stress and distractions, and finding that deeper calm. And for me, that's outside, that's in nature, that's walking. Even if it's just walking. Walking does that. It doesn't have to be a hiking trail. It could be a paved pathway, maybe even in your neighborhood. But getting that rhythm of walking with your heartbeat beating a little faster and keeping your mind and eyes open and just enjoying the time and space and not trying to force it into a box like I did for the Camino and trying to pump it up or make it something that it may not end up being, or making it something and then being disappointed that it didn't achieve that, but rather stepping into that walk or that hike and just seeing it for what it is. You will receive and respond so much better in that process. So were any of these places or hikes calling you as they are calling me? I'll keep you posted because that is something I'm being really drawn to. And with my schedule, I'm leaning to a couple of them that would be timing-wise doable for me. And so keep listening, and maybe I'll have an update about which one of these I may have chosen to explore and get reconnected and almost do a reset of myself, body, mind, and spirit. Did this podcast inspire you to participate in a solo journey? Well, my hope is that all women 50 and up have the courage and opportunity to experience at least one solo trip in their lifetime. But maybe you're feeling stuck about trying it solo. With my one-on-one travel coaching program, I can help you have a transformative trip, especially for those who are needing healing. Go to my website, CherylBeckEsch.com, and check out the program. Travel is a wonderful vehicle to heal.